Good morning, everybody, and thanks to join us. I'm Domenico Fabio, Marketing Manager for Teletimia, and today we are presenting Customer Support webinar. I would like to introduce today's presenter, Andrea Ghezzo, Cellular Technical Support Responsible, and Vika Sauta, Regional Technical Sales Manager for Telit UK and Nordics. A recorded version of this webinar will be available, and if you have any question during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your control panel. We will have time for the question at the end. So, Andrea, feel free to start. Enjoy our webinar.
Okay, so thank you, Fabio, and thank you all for participating to this webinar. So I hope it will be useful to better understand how the support is working and what are the main activities. So we also see together with Vikas what kind of information basically we need from your side to collect to start supporting the customer in the best way. So let's start with the presentation. Okay, so what are the main activities of the support? With support, we can consider not only the technical support, but the full application engineering team and the technical sales team that are located in different regions in Europe. So both teams are involved in the support. The technical sales and technical support are the main point of contact for distributor and customer in order to help them in their project, try to debug the application, certification. We have as activities the design service, and that basically will see give an help to customer to design properly their hardware, and certification support with our Precertification team and the anechoic chamber capability that we have here on site in Italy, in Trieste. Another activity that we offer is the manufacturing process testing. Basically, it gives the possibility, we'll see later on, to verify the quality of the manufacturing process. Okay, so what is the global technical support and how it is divided? You probably know that we have different email address that allow to you and your customer to contact the support. They are mainly divided in geographical areas. So we have the TSEMEA, APAC, and Americas email address that are mainly supporting cellular and GNSS products, and dedicated team that can be contacted through ts-srd@telit.com that are basically supporting all the short-range devices, including Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, products. The global support use a unique tool that is Salesforce, and this tool is used also by our sales team and technical sales. So we are all connected together, and so not only the support team but also sales can be aware of what are the, let's say, hot cases, or in any case the requests that are opened by the distributor and customer they are following. And so this tool can give the possibility to automatically assign the tickets to specific engineers depending on their skill and their load of work. It gives the possibility to merge automatically all the emails that are related to a specific case, and we will see how this will is done by the tool, and how you can, let's say, help us to address each specific request you send to a case that is already open. It helps also to allow to scaling, prioritizing the support services depending on the importance, the account taxonomy, and let's say it can be used to prioritize correctly each support request. The tool also allows to generate internal reports for our regional sales directors in order to give the overview of all the cases that are open. We can see how basically the TS team is working inside Salesforce, and basically, okay, TS is just an entry point. When you send an email, the tool creates a ticket, and the ticket is assigned automatically or manually to different working groups. These working groups are divided depending on the technology and also the main region where R&D are located, and depending on where specific products are developed. So we have the EMEA app zone support that are, of course, providing support to all the app zone requests. The EMEA GNSS for all the GNSS devices. The Europe Cellular Tech Support that are providing support to all European distributor and customer for the cellular products. The MIA cellular support that are taking care of all the Middle East customer and all the products that are basically developed in Israel, in Tel Aviv. We have also a group for the Precertification service that are giving all the answer and support for certification request and for the access to the Precertification service. We have also other queue, you probably know some of them, that can be used to, depending of the request that you are sending to support. The TS SRD, as we said, it gives support worldwide to all Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and legacy short range that will include Zigbee and bus products. The TS Americas for all the Americas customer gives support to Cellular and GNSS. APAX, the same. And we have also dedicated emails integrated in Salesforce to support connectivity and platform and any requests related to our IoT portal. This is just an overview of our tool in Salesforce. You can see here basically all the tickets and divided for the account. So we have a view of the account name, the contact, the subject, the status of the ticket, different priority assigned, and the groups and the support engineers that are working on it. So with the creation of different view, we can have all the time the status of all the tickets that are opened inside in Salesforce. This is just a view of basically a ticket open where you can see all the information on the left related to the ticket, the account name, and basically all the communication thread that is merged, collected together in this ticket. So each email exchanged are based on this specific case number, are showed in the ticket, and so we have the full control of all the history of the ticket. We can see here a view of the workflow and some important thing that I will highlight to you in order to properly open a request and send updates or new email to the support. So basically, of course, support is sent through the dedicated email address and the case created in Salesforce. Most of you probably know that once a new case is open, you receive an automatic notification with the case number and also a reference ID that we'll see later after a few slides. What is the use of the reference ID and how you can use it in the proper way to contact the support team for updates on the same case. So basically, once a case is created, the support team have also different internal tools, not only email exchange with R&D people or phone calls, but also internal tools that can allow us internally to prioritize specific issues, bugs in software bugs, new feature request with CRS, quality problem of the problem with dedicated problem solving tool that allow to also to generate failure analysis report, 8D report, and also RMA handled by our after sales team in SAP. You can see below there is a quarantined tool. Don't be scared about this. It just explain you that Since for each case that you create, a notification is sent to you, and also we have internally different escalation rules in order to escalate to managers tickets that are not, let's say, answered in time. We created a specific, let's say, group where all the new requests that are sent with the TS address in CC and not in the to field are stored. This because we think that if you send a support request, you always put the email address in the to. If it is put in the CC, it is because someone else, not the support, should do or the activity or reply to you to this specific request. This will allow us also to not spam you with automatic notification, and will allow to handle correctly all the escalation rules in case of tickets that do not need to be escalated. Of course, there is a manager handling all the cases in the quarantine group that daily verify the tickets and move them if they went there incorrectly, let's say, if there is a real support request. So the tickets are not lost, but are assigned to the specific engineers in any case. This is the correct process. So once once an email is sent to the support email address, the notification is created, as we said, sent to you, and after that, during the day or after one day, the support team contacts you with a first reply. The first reply generates a reference ID inside the email that is used to auto-merge all further communication to that specific case. So all the communication back and forth on that request, as we saw before, will be merged to a unique case number. We can see here an example of the notification. You probably received a lot of that if you contacted the support. So we highlighted the case number that is indicated in the subject and also in the body of the email, and you can see below what we call a reference ID, which is basically used by the tool to track correctly each email to a specific case number. So as an example, if you are not received yet a proper reply from the support team, but you want to send an update to a specific case, you can just copy and paste the reference ID to your new email in the body of the email. It's not important where you copy, just to be in the body, and you can send to the support your update, a reminder, or whatever to the case, and the email will be automatically merged to the case that is already created. If you not do this and you just send a new email, a new case will be opened, and then of course the manager of each group will have to verify if there is already an open case for it and merge manually. So using the reference ID in this case can help to, let's say, handle properly each request. You can say here an example of a reply that is sent from Salesforce, so a normal email. And at the end, on the bottom of the email, you see the reference ID. So just keep it. Try to not delete it from your communication for your next replies, and all the mails will be tracked correctly. Here we can see we can spend just a few words about how to, let's say, help the support with some keywords that can be written in the subject or if in your email, in order to help both the team and the tool to automate the process of assigning the tickets. So let's say basically based on the specific request that you are going to open, you can write some words like design review, or the acronyms DR, schematics, Gerber, if you want to, let's say, request a design review for your customer. Precertification, or PCTS, which stands for Precertification Test Service, for all the precertification request. You can also, and we will, let's say, suggest to indicate the product variant that is used. So not just the module, but it's important also the variant of the products. The firmware version, which is one of the information that we usually need in order to support you in software issue, in order to debug the issue properly. The customer name, which is also important, and also the taxonomy of the customer, so the importance of the customer. This helps to prioritize correctly and give the correct priority to each ticket. We can see some example like PCTS, name of the customer, alarm.com, and the name of the product. Another example for schematic review. Another for XFP protocol request, so with the name of the customer, distributor, and the taxonomy of the customer. So all of this and will help us to not, let's say, spend too many emails just to collect basic information, but we will, in this way, we will give all the information in order to start directly with the supporting you in with your request. We'll see also later on with Vika some more details on how you can, let's say, help the support to go directly on supporting you. So we see now another service. We talk about the technical support, and part of the application engineering team is dedicated to the design review service. Design review allow the customer to, at the beginning of his project mainly, but also when he has to redesign his board in order to use another product, mainly with the same form factor, So it gives all the indication to the customer to design correctly his hardware. We can offer to customers schematic review in order to verify power supply, digital line, all digital connection with the MCU, with different sensors, and all the SIM connection. So everything that can be connected externally to the module. A PCB review, it's also allow us to verify the RF tracks, to verify antenna, the antenna connection, antenna impedance, if it is was correctly designed, and verify that, for example, power supply tracks are not, let's say, designed too close to, for example, SIM lines, in order to not generate noise. So everything is verified, and if this is done in time before the customer goes in production, it can help to first of all to go in production in time and without any other issue that can be discovered after the product is already on the field. We can also advise on component placement and verify the characterization and matching of an antenna integrated PCB antenna. The service is basically offered to all the customer. There is usually a form, there is usually a form that we ask to fill in order to collect some basic information that our team needs, together with the schematics and the Gerber files, in order to understand better which kind of application is designed, and to address properly all the recommendation. At the end of the review, a report is generated, and together with the report also a survey is sent to you in order to understand the quality of the service that we are given to our customer. Another service, as you probably know, is the Precertification. Precertification service is performed in our facility in Trieste. Basically, we have 2 anechoic chambers where we can offer most of the tests that customer are going to do when he certify his product. So in this way, we can discover before the certification if there is any issue on different tests. Tests we can offer are radiated pure emission in all the technologies, sensitivity test, power output test, also 3D antenna performance, and this is mainly a requirement for all the products that are deployed in America and US, since for PTCRB AT&T and Verizon, there are very strict requirements for the antenna that the application have to respect. So it is important to do all this verification. There are also several additional EMC tests that can be done in our facility. Of course, since all the tests are done in our anechoic chamber and can take, depending of the number of the test that needs to be performed, can take from 1 up to 3 or 4 days. We are, let's say, focusing and offering this service mainly to our key customer. So this is not something that we would like, but we cannot offer to everyone. So you should select together with our sales team and technical sales, which are the key accounts that can be say allowed to use that service. Also in this case, there is request form to fill in order to for our team to understand which are the tests that should be submitted to the device. There are some requirements that the product have to fulfill, like possibility to control the module from AT commands or to answer automatically to a call. So these are basically during the Precertification request, these are information and requests that will be asked to you for your customer to expect in order to allow the test of the device. Also in this case, at the end of the service, report will be generated indicating all the past tests and also the failed, and giving some indication on how to fix this before going in certification. Part of the also certification support, a part of the test we are offering in an anechoic chamber is also to support the customer during their final certification, based on all Telit experience, global experience with different test house and different regulatory approval, like RED, which is the new since a couple of years, the new approval required for to deploy products in Europe, FCC and PCRB, and also EC for US and in Canada, and also supporting the customer for MNO certification, mainly AT&T and Verizon, which are mandatory for customers that are deploying their product in US with these carriers, but also other carriers like Vodafone, Telefonica, Telstra in Australia. So mainly all the main global mobile network operator that for which the customer would like to certify his product. not only here in Europe, but also our support teams in Korea and US can help the customer on local approvals based on their experience. For the US team, since the strong experience in PTCRB, AT&T, and Verizon, so this can help all the customers, so not only American but also European customer, to speed up their whole certification process in North America. So this is just an overview of all the R&D center and basically all the certification spread all over the world. And basically this is what all our R&D and support center can offer to our distributor and customer in order to certify the products and go on the market in time. Last but not least, another service, let's say not service, but support that we can offer to customer that is handled by our physical validation laboratory based in Trieste, and it can help the customer to identify any manufacturing process issue. There are several tests that can be done in order to verify the solder joint quality between the module and the main board, and can be performed in our lab, like X-ray analysis, cross-section of the solder joints in order to verify the quality of the joint, complete analysis of the reflow process used by the customer or his contract manufacturer in case of specific issue that are identified, and other tests like surface finishing, planarity analysis, and also solder paste analysis. So all these tests and analysis can help us to identify specific issue in production for the customer and address correctly and put the correct countermeasure to fix the issue. So saying that, I'm finished with my presentation with this general overview of all the support activity we are offering for not only for our European customer, for all customer all over the world. And see in the next slide together with Vikas some more will go in deeper on the support activities and let's say how you can and we can help you on supporting our customer.
Okay, hi guys. Andrea, you've got my screen? Someone can. Yeah, you can see that, yeah? Brilliant. Okay, so we've had a good summary from Andrea on the sort of processes and what's involved in supporting customers. For this part of the presentation, I thought it'd be fun to really add some observations and experiences, and hopefully they can help to understand the kinds of customers and the queries we see. We've seen a lot of queries and types of customers over the years, so yeah, we'll have a little fun at looking at some of the extremes and think about how we handle customers. Then some examples of the kind of queries and why sometimes it takes a lot of emails just to come to an understanding of really what the situation is with the customer and what the issue is ultimately. So gathering the right information early on, it really can be helpful to progress quickly, and it saves frustration and so on, on the customer side. So again, there's some issues that arise time to time, the same issues that arise again and again, and it seems that a lot of people meet the same issues, especially when they start using the modules. So we've grouped a couple of those together just so you guys are aware of them and able to manage these kind of inquiries first line also. So hopefully you'll have some answers ready. When we're supporting designs, sometimes we come to moments when the customer realizes that actually he doesn't have the right hardware setup around the modem to enable what he actually needs, and this can be a roadblock. So some topics are really good to think about early on, rather than leave it to a last-minute upgrade, which is going to be investigated 3 days before it's been promised to a customer. This is the worst case. So we can help draw customers' attention to these things. So we'll spend a few minutes to talk about that. Another aspect, which is not really core functionality and it's often overlooked, is to provide good debug interfaces to the modem on the host application. This is also something that it's really good to take into account during the hardware design. So again, we can help to make customers aware of this and plan ahead. This means when any issues do occur, we're in a good position to help the customer very quickly and very directly. And finally, we do have a set of trace tools. So we'll have a quick flash look at this and see what's available. And these primarily do use the debug interface in order to gather information in real time. Okay, onwards. So this slide's actually rather vague, and I really must be honest, there's no real scale or even relation between the bars you see. But each, I'd say, is a representation of one kind of factor I might consider of customers. We could add more bars, I'm sure. So let's take the first one. You'll understand what I mean. The first bar we could say is kind of like the nature of the engineer raising the issue. We've all got customers that raise like each and every question and topic like it's an urgent fire. They almost often running very late and they needed the solution yesterday. Quite often, most often, or every time, the problem is a modem problem. They're very good at actually laying the blame. On the other end of this spectrum, sometimes we've actually scratched our heads when we learn about a poor customer who's been struggling alone to identify and debug an issue for over 6 months before eventually, they concluded, hey, we're very sure this is not our own issue. So now we will really go and push and ask Telit for an answer. But, they wanted to prove that it was not their problem and, before they really decide that the modem is doing something wrong. This is really the opposite side. And it's nice that they go to such an effort. It's great, to qualify the problem, but also it's not a good way. It's not that, those engineers were not experienced either. They were just down the wrong path. And because of the input we eventually gave, it was at a complete tangent to where they were investigating. So it can be difficult to manage and prioritize customers, and sometimes the ones who shout the loudest get the most attention. So maybe we should look after some of the quieter customers as well. Whether they're experienced or inexperienced, sometimes we're dealing with either. Sometimes we don't know, right? And sometimes we assume, and this also gets us into trouble. I think as humans, we kind of prefer to assume that, if the customer has got some proficiency and experience, we can probably avoid asking every low-level question to make sure he's not done something silly. you know, from experience, I can probably say, yeah, going back and forth, email after emails, trying to figure out, you know, why a customer was really, you know, unable to register his modem. You know, in the end, he's convinced it's broken, it's not working, he has a faulty unit. You know, we can exchange emails for several hours. You know, in one case, I remember having, in the end, a photograph back of the setup. And well, you know, he had the antenna. It was very quick to spot that the antenna was not actually plugged into the main antenna port, but it was plugged into the diversity port. And the reasoning there is because the diversity, it sounds more diverse. You know, maybe it can connect to more networks. It's a more capable antenna. Okay, so very, yeah, it was a gotcha. But you can easily waste time on things like this. So we've had a few, you know, facepalm moments, I can assure you. Sometimes customers can also be, you know, highly experienced, and they kind of fail to accept simple answers. This is a different problem. So I remember, you know, we had one, in fact, very experienced engineer. He was complaining about issues communicating with our EVK2. You know, everything was working yesterday. The AT communication was fine. The serial port was working fine. You know, the next day he's been reconnecting some stuff, and now it's not working. And sure enough, you know, we spent quite a few emails going back and forward. He thinks he's checked everything. You know, I suggested to him, hey, there's nothing else left. Just can you try and swap the serial cable? Anyway, he didn't have one on his desk, and maybe there wasn't one close, so he didn't want to do this anyway. He threw this idea out the window. In the end, I can tell you, I drove 2 hours to reach him the next day, and with me, I took a spare serial cable. So you can guess the problem. I plugged in the new serial cable, and in the end, it's only a cable. You know, cables can break. So experienced or inexperienced, you know, alike, you know, these guys need reminders to cater also to think about what they need to remember when they're designing. And yeah, some of these points we'll have a look at further up, like the debugging, etc. Okay. So this is a bit of fun as well, just some example inquiries. This is the kind of stuff we could actually receive. I'm sure Andrea is used to seeing this quite often. And when you do receive it, it's like, okay, where do I start? So let's say, you know, with the first one, my modem's been working for the last 3 years. You know, this is quite often people say it's working perfectly before, but now it's not working. Therefore, suddenly it's not working. I try swap the modem with the other one, and you know it works. So I think it's a modem problem here. But you know, there's very little actual information to work with, and we're going to have to define a lot of things. You know, which is the modem exactly, and then which is the variant of the modem. Which firmware are you running? Is it aged or is it, you know, recently updated? Which technology is it using? Is it 2G, 3G, 4G? Does a problem happen on each? And what exactly have you tried to swap? You know, maybe sometimes a customer has different versions of his host code, which is running in the field, and there could be a mix of firmware in the field. And what does it mean exactly stop working? People often say this is not working, and you're like, okay, define that. You know, how are you measuring working and not working? In the end, he's, you know, basically arrived at a cause. Even though he's declared it, we still need to check everything and see behind with each detail to make sure, you know, there hasn't been a silly mistake. And we need to find a way to break down this problem. And it's going to start with a lot of questions. The more useful info we can have in the beginning, the quicker we can understand where the problem is going to be. Number 2, let's see, I can't get the evaluation board to work. The lights will blink and then it turns off. This one's actually very common, and we'll talk about it. You know, but we've got a slide dedicated to this. But otherwise, again, we know, you know, it's a module and an eval board, but we don't know exactly which setup he has. We don't have any real information. Again, you know, something like a picture in this case can really help, so we can see exactly, you know, what is he plugged in where, what is he doing. I can remember actually, you know, in this case, one case, I spent quite a few emails going back and forth with one customer, and he was trying to connect to the USB interface. It was implemented on some test points on his board, and he was trying to connect to there in order to debug. So he patched into the board a USB cable, and Windows was, was not enumerating. He was getting the ding when the USB device is detected, but there was no enumeration. The enumeration failed, and the drivers were not working. So of course we'd been through everything, installing the new drivers, etc. And it seemed for him, not even trying another PC, many of the last cases worked, anything I could think of. So in the end, again, I ended up driving there and having a look, and on the table, what do we see? Immediately it's obvious. The USB was connected really with a set of kind of flying wires, curled around, loose, across a couple of feet of rat's nest of evaluation boards, a real electrical mess. So really there was no considering of this, what is the USB? I think people think plug and play. So, okay. So we needed to explain exactly, so you've got to be a little bit more careful. And again, a picture in that case could have really helped, because it would have been quite obvious what was going on. And again, with the last inquiry, you can see, well, we need to define a lot of things. Which network are we talking about? 4G in this case, it's searching. In fact, registration problems are also arising more with LTE modems, and we'll have a slide also for that later. So let's where does this take us? Information, and the more quality information we can have in the beginning, this is going to save us time. So briefly listing, which device exactly, which variant. Often we do need to go back and ask with another email. Which firmware? This is very common to go back and ask. Which firmware is it exactly that you're using? Which variant, which firmware? Are you working with the evaluation board or the target hardware? Of course, we always recommend that the customer have an evaluation board, because this really does help us to break a problem in half if we can reproduce an issue on the EVK. Which type of SIM is used, which type of network, what technology does the issue occur in. It can be very useful to know the radio environment. I can tell you a lot of time we've had people complaining about connection problems, and the modem's dropping the connection. Eventually, when you find out the signal strength is barely enough to maintain conduct an SMS message, let alone any kind of IP communications. How is the power provided? Yeah.
And the antenna was put in an anechoic chamber.
Okay.
Without any signal around.
Exactly. And sometimes you spend a lot of time in order to learn this, and it's so dear. It's a lot of time wasted. The answer was very simple. So yeah, how is the antenna connected? How is the USB connected? Where is it connected? Is the SIM inserted in both interfaces? There's two SIM interfaces. We've seen that happen too. And which interfaces are available for debug? What can we do? In the worst case, the customer has the host talking to the MCU. There's no debug interface, and we have no way to interrogate the modem. So give as much real visibility on the situation, which is on the remote side. You guys can help with this as well. And again, a picture paints 1,000 words. So let's move on to have a look at some of the common issues that we do see time and time again, and this is probably the big famous one, and this is a bit of a gotcha, and it gets everyone at the first step. So to turn on the EVK2 and turn on the interface board, you have a couple of buttons there. There's one of those is an on-off button, and the process is to press this button for a period of 5 seconds to switch on the device. If it's too short a press, what will happen is one of these LEDs will flash momentarily, and then it will switch back off again. And if this pulse is not long, so in a normal case, this happens anyway. In fact, the LED doesn't stay lit. This is not the default mode. And this is maybe counterintuitive, because engineers will expect to see the LED remain on, but in fact, it will switch off, and that's normal as well. The second thing is the LED actually lights up during that 5-second pulse. And I think people have a tendency, which as soon as they see the LED light up, they release the on-off button. So this 5-second pulse just seems to go against human nature to be able to count to 5 accurately. They tend to go 1, 2, 3, 4, release, and they don't count to the end of the 5th second. So it looks to be very difficult. It's very simple in the user manual, and maybe when you put it in your microprocessor code to do this from the micro, it works perfectly. But usually when the customer is getting the EVK and he's starting it up, this is a complaint. The EVK is not working. So this is very easily solved. You can basically tell them to hold the button for 6 seconds, and then everything works again. So it's a very short and quick answer. Hold it for 6 seconds. And if you like, you can explain to them that they're having trouble counting to 5. Okay. Second, the USB connection. This sometimes people still struggle with. So, we do have a stream of inquiries over time, which is turning up. There's a few interfaces on there. We have, the real RS-232 ports. At the top there, you can see there's a set of jumpers. These actually are connected to the native UART on the modem, and these allow to route the UART either to these physical RS-232 connectors or on the lower right to the USB to serial converter. So when you plug into this large USB connector, you'll see the devices enumerated below. Like I said, it's a serial to USB converter chip, so you have 4 ports revealed, and 2 of those will be connected to the modem. Effectively, you are connecting to the modem, either of these connections on the right side, and the associated jumper setting will connect you to the UART. On the bottom left, we see the direct USB connection on the mini USB, and this is taking you into the modem's direct native USB interface. So often we still see customers who are installing the drivers for the module, but then they're connecting in on the FTDI, and so on and so forth. So this is just something to pay attention as well. Okay, hardware handshaking. Usually the customer's up and running by this point. The report normally comes in, they're trying to work on a new board, and they can talk to the modem. They've got the AT port working okay, so they've put a tick in there. My connection is good to the modem, communication is good, and they've registered to the network. But now they're trying to actually make a communication, and the modem stops responding, and it doesn't work at that point. And it's very repeatable, and the modem doesn't work, and so it must have a problem. In the end, often the point is that hardware handshaking is not relevant, on the AT interface. So the fact it's working originally is because hardware handshaking is not used in the command mode. When you move to the data mode and you need to engage a socket or some sort of communication, then the hardware handshaking becomes used. And we still see a lot of customers who say, yeah, I've implemented the RX and TX, and we've only got the RX and TX, and this is not a good way to be. So we always recommend you're going to use the hardware handshaking, because you need to be able to control the flow of data with the modem. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, hardware handshaking. Please, guys, out in the field, everyone's used to using the Bluetooth modules, whatever, with RX and TX, and and let's not implement the IO lines for the handshaking. So let's try and urge them forwards. The next point is about the PDP activation in 4G, and this became a little bit different to what was happening in 3G and 2G. And really the first context, what we define, the first APN, it's used for the actual network registration, and the default APN can be automatically activated on it. So you're able to check this after you've actually registered. And if you do need to use a different APN for your own PPP or data connection, don't use the first context. You need to store it into the second context. So in the command in the middle of the screen, you see the cgd-cont equals 2. We define the second context. And also you need to define the socket configuration in order to use that context. So this is sometimes causing customers issues, so it's worth remembering as well. So often how it used to work in 2G where, you know, defining your context was an afterthought. You know, in 4G, you need to pay attention a little bit sooner. Okay, TLS 1.2, this is a security standard that's moved on to version 2. Now we meet issues with customers who are using the older firmware. The older version of firmware is supporting earlier versions of TLS, some of it which is becoming expired. Now the point is we do support TLS 1.2 on the latest firmwares. All the customer needs to do is migrate. And this is a point, you know, sometimes the customers need, you know, to migrate their firmware because standards change and they need to stay on top of this. And you need to be a little bit strategic with this, and also notice that, you know, the firmware is going to keep moving forward. Eventually a firmware version is going to become end of life, and, you know, strategically you should try and, you know, accept a new firmware periodically. So this is why, you know, sticking with what works, which is, you know, an old thing that I, you know, remember from the microprocessor, you know, customers. You know, if it works, why do I need to upgrade it? Why do I need to, you know, it's fine, it's working, it'll always work. It's not a safe gamble. So things, yep, Andrea.
Yeah, just to add that basically it's from our experience now, a lot of customers are started using the Amazon cloud, and so basically the Amazon cloud needs TLS 1.2. So not only these servers, but right now most of the cloud and the servers that are which needs connection, security connection, are moved to the new security protocol. So it is important for customer to use the latest firmwares.
Precisely. So if it hasn't hit your radar yet, I mean, these customers should start filtering through, because this is happening. Okay, great. Cheers, Andrea. A couple of points which is good to think about at design time, and not, you know, in the last moment, because, you know, here, let's say in the black bold at the top here, this is what I normally hear from a customer. It's great, you know, we've got the evaluation working, it's so far so good, it's communicating just the way we need, everything's working perfectly. Now we want to enable the power saving, but, you know, I tried to enter CFON 5 and it doesn't seem to work. You know, to which we might respond, you know, have you made sure you've met the entry conditions and not the exit conditions? You know, there's some conditions which you need to observe in order to enter successfully into the power saving and to eject. And they would say, what? And we think, oh dear, because if you don't take this into account in the beginning, you know, you may not have the hardware set up that you need exactly in order to notify the modem or be aware of when the modem is waking up, etc. So this is something, if you want to be using power saving, you want to plan for it during design time and know that it's going to work. Over the air upgrades, again, this is something which, you know, people think about maybe as an afterthought. And usually when, you know, they're in the middle of some sort of disaster, they need to, you know, upgrade the modem code to have a new feature. Let's say they need TLS 1.2 for the sake of the argument. And this is best prepared, you know, before you desperately need it. So if you've gone and designed with something like a host MCU, which is not, you know, updatable or doesn't have much resource that you can even add more handling, then this could be a blocking point. Note that there's more than one way to do the over-the-air upgrading. You know, some ways don't need any resources from your host processor really, maybe some code handling, and other methods may require that, you know, you manage also the Delta file or the process in some deeper way. So think about it ahead of time. The debug ready design, we mentioned this earlier, you know, coming to a design which is good for debugging and supporting in the field. So what can people do? Okay, follow all the hardware user guides and everything. Yeah, please, of course. In the hardware, people often connect to the first UART. So the idea is to implement traces, at least for the second UART and the USB wherever they're available. And this allows us to really get into the modem and get a real-time trace in parallel with the host application. Also, it means we can get into a second direct AT terminal in parallel with whatever the application is running. So this can be useful if you need to upgrade firmware, if you need to debug or set up the modem, even in production. In the host application firmware, maybe some software preparation is also useful, again, to have a debug ready design. So allow some way to stop your host doing its normal process of controlling the modem and monitoring the modem and shutting the modem down if it's not behaving. Be able to disengage it. Yeah. So maybe we have some custom commands, so we can turn on the modem, turn it off, do the hardware shutdown, and stop reacting to the power mon change. Optional, and some customers do this anyway. They can build a kind of pass-through AT function. It's useful, but it's not suitable for doing things like firmware updates. I've very rarely seen a pass-through work at all. And they can add some host debug commands, to allow the modem to power up and power down, etc. So if they've done all of that, module tracing is an option. And if we do have an issue, then we've got a couple of tools which can help with this. We've produced two different tools. One of these is really targeted for the Intel and Altair-based chipset modems. And we have also TTCQ for the Qualcomm chipset. And depending on the modem and the model, you've got some dedicated ports which are available for tracing. So these can be the auxiliary UART, and it could be the USB as well. And depending on the modem, you'll select the right debug interface. This is just a quick look at a couple of views on the tools. This is a TTC. So across the top tabs, you can see you're able to select which settings primarily. So define the ports that you're going to connect to, and then for the different chipset-based modems, you can reach onto the exact tab, put the trace on, get information about the device, start the trace, and at this point, you're then gathering in the background a real-time trace. The host application is still running, and the aim of the game at this point is to reproduce the error whilst collecting a trace. After the error is demonstrated, then you will stop the trace, and the binary files which are revealed or saved, you'll then pass these back to Telit in order that we can analyze the problem for you. Similarly, we have a tool here which works on the Qualcomm-based chipsets. It's called TTCQ. Again, a very simple tool in order to configure communication with the device, load a configuration mask which will set some trace masks, and then save the binary file. And similarly, you would share the binary file with us for analysis. And this is really sort of concluding your sort of round tour on support, the processes, how it works, and let's see, yeah. Okay, hold on, a couple more slides. Module tracing Linux, actually, we can do this on Linux as well. So you've seen the Windows tools on the Linux. We have also a couple of ways of doing it because those programs don't run on Windows or on Linux. So there's some dedicated AT commands available. We've got the RTDE. This allows to stream out of the devices onto the UART or the trace interface, so you can set up the trace mask within there, and there's some extra AT commands to enable the trace. So this removes the dependence of these particular tools and allows people with Linux to gather the traces. There's a couple of restrictions around there, and also you can see down at the bottom that there's the ACM ports defined. So you've got a trace port which is used and a couple of AT ports. It's similar to the Windows but a bit different. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the presentation of really the support and the processes there. Andrea, I don't know if you've got any final words to add or if we have any questions, Dominic.
Yes, we have some questions for Andrea. Can you explain when a customer is diamond and so on?
Yeah, well, this is mainly sales classification for all our customers. So based on the customer turnover, each customer is defined with a specific taxonomy. So basically, if you want to know, let's say, something more, you should contact directly your regional, the Telit regional sales or the technical sales team in your region.
Okay, another one, on USB turning on sound help also to detect startup.
Oh, yes, but you need to pay attention to since once the USB is turned on, and the first port that is presented is the flash facility port in order to refresh the firmware. So the first port, the first sound that you hear is that one. After 1 second, the port disappear, and the 80 port comes. So you need to be sure that that the correct ports are presented in your Windows system in order to start communicating with the module.
Okay, and LTE PDP context only for Europe, more reserved context in Verizon, etc.
Yes, for let's say that for mainly for AT&T and Verizon, there are predefined set of APN that cannot be modified, mainly on the first 3 PDP, and these are used for all the network services. So for voice over LTE, IMS registration, data service, and other, let's say, services and processes that are handled directly by the network operator. In Europe, usually the default APN is activated directly during the attach process in LTE, so during the registration. The carrier sent to the module the default APN that has to be used for, let's say, standard to activate the default BIR, as it is called, to control the standard communication between the module and the network, which in LTE is all IP based. And of course, the same if I need to use a different APN, as Vikas explained it, I need to define a different PDP context. So need to set up context 2 or 3 to set up a data session with another APN.
Okay.
I hope I answered.
Yeah. Okay, yes, that's it. So thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure being with you today. So for your information, next week we have another webinar with focus on non-cellular portfolio, so on Wi-Fi. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Vikas and Andrea, and have a nice day.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.